If you've offended somebody, even if it doesn't produce that in their life, it should produce that in your life. That's where you meet God and recognize, God, you have done an amazing thing here. You've healed the relationship, and now I can move on with my life. You've healed a relationship, and now I can move on to become what you want out of my life. Look what Matthew chapter 5, verses 23 and 24 says. Therefore, if you're offering your gift at the altar, and there you remember that your brother has something against you, in other words, that you have offended somebody. If you suddenly realize, oh, I have been offensive to that person, I have violated that relationship, I've hurt that individual, I need to be forgiven. The Bible says in verse 24, then leave your gift there in front of the altar. In other words, don't go any further with it. Go and be reconciled to your brother. Reconciled means to make it right, to restore the relationship. In other words, go and ask for forgiveness. Go get forgiveness. And then come and offer your gift. Why? Why does it say it that way? Because once you've received forgiveness, once there is restoration, then when you offer the gift, it is worship. It's real worship. You have reason to worship. God, you've restored a relationship. Something that was broken. Something that I was either entirely at fault for or at least partially at fault for, but I was the one that needed forgiveness. And God, you've restored that. Now I have reason. I have reason to worship. Now I know a lot of you are really struggling with this right now. Because you're thinking right now, wow, so many people I need to go get right with. Let me encourage you to not just go start dialing people on the phone. Will you forgive me? Thanks. Click, click. Will you forgive me? Thanks. That's not the way it's supposed to work. Because some of you have a pretty long list. Well, why don't you pray and ask God to say, and just do it the way that I did with Angela, and say, God, if you'll cause our paths to cross, I'll make it right. And let God set the timing. Let God be the one who initiates the whole process. You see, with Jacob, that was all God's timing. That was all God's timing. Remember, Jacob sent some of his manservants on to see what was going on with Esau. He just wanted to find out what was going on. Earlier, we read that in one verse, he just says, go find out what's going on with Esau. And they came back and they said, Esau's coming after you. He's got 400 men with you. Jacob did not initiate that. That was something God did. God did something in Esau's life to begin that process where there could be restoration and their paths would cross. Let me suggest that God can do the same thing for you in your life. There's somebody that you've offended and you need to be right with them. Then you go and you ask for forgiveness. You need to be made right with that one individual. Now, who do you need to approach? Somebody who knows that you've offended them. One of the biggest mistakes you can make is ask forgiveness for somebody who doesn't know that you've even offended them. You know, believe me, I'm speaking from experience. Isn't anything more disconcerting than somebody coming up to you and going, I've hated you all my life. Really? Will you forgive me? Oh, wow. It's kind of sudden. I didn't know you hated me. What is it that you don't like about me? Forgiveness. Listen to what I'm about to say. Forgiveness is as public. Or let me rephrase this. Confession is as public as the sin itself. Confession should be as public as the sin itself. Confession should be as public as the sin itself. If I have committed something, if I have sinned and committed an offense against Bill, and boy, Bill's going to have a complex by the time this class is over. He doesn't like me. And if I've committed an offense, if I've offended Bill, I don't need to stand up in front of all of you people and say, I've hated Bill all my life. That's wrong. Confession should be as public as the sin itself. It's just wrong to include everybody else because nobody else really even knows what's going on. And if that person doesn't know, then you probably don't even need to go to that person. You just need to get that right with God. But if the person does know, that person knows that there has been an offense, then you probably should make it right with that person. But just use caution. Use common sense. But most of all, let God lead you. Let Him cross